All right.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we call roll, I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening, attending tonight's council meeting. We really do appreciate you all being here. If you've not signed in, please do so. If you have not received an agenda, I'd like to make sure you have an agenda, because pretty much everything the council has up here is in that packet. Also, I want to welcome any residents that are watching us from home tonight. And if you are unable to watch it live, or you can tell your neighbors, we do have a link on our website where you can watch the video itself. So at this time, Ms. Williams, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Burns.
Here.
Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Bolton. Here. Ms. Meister.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Jennings.
Here.
We have a quorum. The first item we're going to deal with is the approval of the April council minutes. In your packet, you have a copy of the minutes for the April meeting. I'd like you to look at those real quick and see if there are any corrections that you would like to present. If not, then I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes. Any corrections?
Make a motion to approve the April minutes.
Motion by Mr. Walters. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Bolton. Any further discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Bolton. Yes. Ms. Meister. Abstain. Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Ms. Jennings.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0, one abstention. Our next one is a motion to approve pay ordinance number 5. And you have a itemized list in your packet of all the bills that were paid. I believe the dates were, April,
Yeah.
what are the dates?
Should have been this Friday. Yeah,
But from what period, what period?
I know, I'm looking, like April 11th through last Friday. 5/3.
So if you review those,
Yeah.
are there any questions that you have about any of the bills that were paid?
This chemicals paint. I have no idea.
What'd you say?
Chemicals paint.
It's probably waterworks. A lot of these are waterworks. They're supplying their chemicals. That's a waterworks bill. Mining Township is their first campfire.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the Miami Avenue grant, that I guess was that a final payment made to them?
Not a final payment, I don't think. I don't think it was a final payment.
Is there still money in the fund? Oh, wait, am I looking at the fund sheet instead of the bill?
Yeah, you're looking at the fund sheet. Yeah, I was thinking, I don't remember paying a bill to.
Okay, yeah, okay. That fund sheet is long as the bill sheet.
I know, yes, it is.
Too long. Sorry about that.
Are there any other questions that you have?
I have a quick question. On Rob Murphy's miracles, he said, do we have an itemization that comes from him,
As far as the number of hours he's
or the
worked,
number of hours and the things that he has worked on?
he's not
I
presented
haven't
that.
received anything.
I've not received anything other than the increase.
So we just take it from,
Whatever questions that you may have with that would be ones you would have to address with him. You know, it's sort of the same way that when we had a village administrator, he was not truly accounting any hours there either. And I don't know that we put those particular, I do know he worked, and if I would ask him how many hours specifically, I don't know.
I'm not so much concerned about the hours so much, is I thought when we brought this on, he worked so much for the law works and so much for Cleves, so is there a delineation between the law works and Cleves?
Yes, and it's this time because of the fact that I took over all the basic operation day to day, that's 90% out of waterworks, 10% out of the village.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the ordinance number 5?
I'll make a motion to approve pay ordinance number 5.
Motion by Ms. Meister. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Williams. Any further discussion? Any would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Bolt.
Yes.
Ms. Meister.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Ms. Jennings.
Yes.
Okay, on number 5, at the last council meeting, we brought in Daniel. I was recommending that we use him as a community parks coordinator. And I was asked to create a job description for him, which I submitted to the council well in advance. There were questions that people had. I'd like to tell the public a little bit. Some of the council members felt that it was a bit demanding. And I believe it is a demanding job description, especially for $16 an hour. However, I also know from having talked to him that he's a pretty creative guy, he's a hard worker, he's got a lot of good ideas. And I know some council members have had discussions with him privately. I would entertain, if you would, any comments and your interactions with Daniel, how do you feel about him and being our coach?
I had a chance to meet up with Daniel and the other people in Bradley Park, and just get an overall view of what he's up against, and some ideas that he'd like to see put in place, show what you're going to walk through. Just great ideas, hard work.
Anyone else interact with Daniel or have questions about that job description? I'm sorry.
David, does this fit within your purview? You think that this is doable?
Yeah, within a certain time frame, I'll be able to achieve every part of that job description. I think it's not all going to be immediate, but I think at some point, everything will be touched on eventually.
Any other questions? At this point, I'm going to ask a motion to approve the job description for the Cleves Community Park Coordinator at a pay of $16 per hour. Motion by Mr. Williams, second by Ms. Jennings. Is there any further
Is
discussion?
that effective today, or is that going back?
No, that's going back. We talked about that the last time.
Right, I just want to make sure.
That was a good question. We did make that commitment last month. Any other further questions? Heather, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bowe,
Yes.
Ms. Meister,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Janice.
Yes.
Okay, number 6 on the agenda is one that I sent out to you today. I apologize for it coming out. I'd like to give a little background to everybody here this evening. In 2010, we had, I think it was the council member, former council member who was here when the International Property Maintenance Code was adopted by the village. And so that's been on the books for quite a while. Our code enforcement officer who I met yesterday, he's only in one day during the week. He was concerned about whether or not the maintenance code was up to date because the manual we had was a 2009. Okay, so it's not changed since then, although the International Property Maintenance Code has changed. So this morning I went ahead and I purchased the light. I think we're supposed to be redoing it every year. We just have not been doing it. And so I paid that fee this morning, and it's also already reimbursed me for it, which I appreciate. But we have some issues we have to resolve in our village as far as how people maintain their homes. And this is probably the best that we have. Our attorney was not present, he was on vacation. So I went ahead and worked on this today. So in your packet, you're going to see a highlighted yellow area. The actual statute, not statute, the ordinance really has not changed. The only changes that have taken place are in the yellow. And when I went on to Am Legal today, they have guidance on how to write an ordinance, especially one that is really sort of an updated ordinance, which is what this is. And you have to highlight everything that's new. Everything else that's in that. In fact, you've got the old one there right with you, so you can compare the two. Everything in there is exactly the same as it was in 2010. Now, some of the things as far as the maintenance code itself, maybe some of the definitions have changed, they've been updated and things like that. But for the purpose of this, not having our attorney to be able to walk through every little detail of it, I felt it was probably best just to go ahead and put the things in that I knew needed to be addressed. The first part of where it says whereas, those all come from a code of ethics. You can't even buy this manual anymore unless you sign off that you are going to abide by the code of ethics. And so everything in that yellow area pretty much is around our enforcement officer. If you take a look at it closely, it's talking about honesty, it's talking about integrity. Those are things that were not part of the old one. And then the other part, there were 3 manuals that we had. And those 3 manuals were buried away up at the administration office. The ones that I've changed here, I believe, need to go to 2 individuals. And we can still put this on our website so that people can access it that way also. But the 2 individuals I think need to be the safeguards of this are our zoning enforcement officer and our chair of our zoning committee. And that would be Mr. Walters. And they will have the ability to put that on their, it's a digital copy now, so they can put it right on their cell phone or on their tablet. And if they are asked a question, they can reference it very quickly by using it that way. So the other language is sort of outdated. I updated that language. Everything else in it is exactly by Am Legal's guidelines of how it should be structured. And I'd be glad to answer any other questions that the council has or any members of the community might have.
Does this give us the ability, by having a more updated international property maintenance code, to enforce it versus 210, 22?
Our zoning official believes the answer is yes. He was concerned that if he was going down a path that wasn't updated, that that might cause some legal issues, and you didn't want to do that. I think I spoke to you earlier today that when Mr. Ruble gets back, the three of us will be sitting down because there may be some difference of opinion as to who has the power to enforce a civil ordinance and civil citations. So I think we're gonna have to work that out with our attorney, but my answer to you, the short answer is yes.
I'd like to thank you for taking the opportunity to do this and getting us in a direction that's going to allow us to enforce our zoning ordinances. From what I understand, we're kind of woefully lacking in enforcing that. And if this helps us to do that, I think that's a good step in the right direction. I think it needs to be known and thank you for doing this.
You're quite welcome. I can tell you, I'm not gonna take total credit for that because Ed is the one that sort of pushed me to get this moving. We talked about, do we want to do it now or do we want to wait until the next meeting? After thinking of that discussion, I thought there's no sense in doing it. It's not that big of a change. There is one thing though, if we are going to vote on this tonight, there is a procedure that we must follow that comes out of the village officer's handbook. Because most resolutions and ordinance have to be read on 3 different occasions. So the first thing I would like to ask for is a motion to suspend that rule and to read the title of this ordinance 3 times by title only. And so if we get that passed first, okay, then we can go on and vote on the ordinance itself.
Don't we usually introduce it and then suspend
I'm sorry?
ordinance?
I thought we had to.
I think normally we introduce the ordinance, and if you've got enough to even have the introduction passed, then you suspend the rules.
Okay. If that's how, that's not necessarily how it says it in here, but that's okay.
Well, that's what we've always done, but
Yeah.
we can do it different if that's
What it says right in the Ohio Revised Code, section 731.17, ordinances and resolutions shall be read on 3 different days unless 3 readings are dispensed with by a 3/4 vote of all members of the village council.
correct, and that's done after the ordinance is introduced, and you know that you even have enough votes to introduce it. Sometimes it's.
I don't have a problem, I don't have a problem going that way, so you're asking me to ask for a motion to.
Introduce it.
Okay,
And if council votes not to suspend the rules, then that becomes your first reading
okay.
of that ordinance.
So, do I have a motion to approve the ordinance amending ordinance number 18, 2020 International Property Maintenance Code?
You make a motion to adopt ordinance 18.
I misspoke, it should be ordinance 3. I'm reading the old ordinance, I apologize. So, yes, it'll be ordinance 3, 2024.
And I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 3, 2022. Or introduce, I'm sorry.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any other questions? Yes,
So
sir.
you're going light speed here. And I'm probably simply not copying. I'm just not comprehending what you're saying. What is the awful rush to do this with us?
Well, there's 2 things, and having been involved in a number of conversations with Mr. Merkel and a number of conversations with Mr. Walters and our zoning official, there has been a lot of question about as to whether or not our ordinances are up to date and enforceable. And we are going to find out very shortly, there's a lot of them that are not. That's why we have had legal coming to the June 12th meeting. So if we're gonna be sitting here another month with the enforcement officer who's concerned that he may not be enforcing the ordinances correctly, in other words, under the International Maintenance Code, he wants the most up-to-date information. The actual manual that we are using is what he will start quoting to residents. The actual rest of the ordinance is exactly the same. Nothing changes. The fines don't change, the process doesn't change. but he wants to make sure that whatever he is citing in the maintenance code is most current and most proper regulations that he can cite. That's the only reason. I don't know that we want to wait another month, and Mr. Walters, if you want to weigh in on that, I'd ask you to do so.
I don't know so much that we're rushing it. I think it's well overdue, and I think if nothing else, it gives us the segue or the leeway to begin the process of enforcing the ordinances with the most updated rules, so to speak, that we're looking at as the International Maintenance Property Code. Speaking with our zoning officer, again, as he said, he feels more comfortable using the more updated one. I don't see a real issue in not having an updated international property maintenance code as opposed to using the old one. What would be the harm in using the most updated code versus the vintage?
I think any of my objections are strictly process. It seems we had a conversation this afternoon and therefore looked up on the internet to write this law that we're supposed to introduce without previous deliberation. That, as a general practice, I think that would be frowned upon.
In what manner?
It hasn't gone through our solicitor's review. And theoretically, this will govern everything that our enforcement agents will want to do.
So as it stands, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. But as it stands now, we have a vintage 2010, so all this is doing is allowing us to update it to 2024.
Is this property code is not updated every single year, is it?
They do update it.
So in 2010, we adopted the 2009 edition.
Correct.
So what we're doing here is we're just saying we're amending that ordinance that adopted the 2009 edition by adopting the current 2024 update edition, correct?
That's correct.
It actually should be done every year.
But these things you listed are just the main things that have changed, correct?
The only thing that has changed is the number of copies. Okay, so instead of 3, there's 2, and you can list one on your website where everybody can see it.
Looks like fines
The
were
concerns I
updated.
think people have is not knowing what is allowed and what isn't. Nothing else other than the governance of how our enforcement officer conducts himself. And I spoke with him today about that. He saw it. He's in perfect support of it. So that's why I brought it to you tonight.
Well, it's 15 years old. I don't have any problems with it.
I don't know that we're doing anything process-wise differently than what we've been doing, we're just doing it under the auspices of an updated code. Is that
Okay, so let me be direct. This is not to impugn anybody's work, but are we comfortable with the mayor looking this up and writing the ordinance?
It was sent to our attorney. I'll just tell you that. I got no response back. That's all I can tell you. And he is on vacation, so I'm not questioning that. But I did ask him if he would be willing to be part of this meeting before he left, and I didn't get a solid answer on that. It really doesn't matter to me one way or the other, whether it's done tonight or some time else. Others may not feel that way.
I'm asking you guys what you guys think. Like, I'm ambivalent. I think this is harmless. I think you could write ordinance number 4 saying, oops, we forgot a whereas clause. And ordinance number 3, we hereby amend ordinance number 3. And you guys can take the initiative and get this on the books. And that's all fine. I'm asking for your opinions. If you don't differ from that, then let's move on.
Any comments from the public? I'm sorry.
Vote on it.
Vote on it, yeah.
Well, first, is there any further discussion?
If the majority of the people sitting at that table are,
We have got,
It's been introduced, we had discussion, we
can't
need to
you
do
vote?
the roll call.
Yeah, we're going to,
Do I have a motion to,
You can't,
Oh, we
that's
have a
part of the
motion.
motion, you also have a motion to introduce.
so that was the final. Call the roll.
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
yes.
Ms. Golden.
yes.
Ms. Meister.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
yes.
Ms. Jennings.
Yes. Can I say something? Mr. Barnes, I do appreciate your playing devil's advocate, and that's always important to have somebody that's willing to do that, to open up that discussion. I it's hard to hear what you're saying about concerns about having it not gone to the village attorney, however, it is a really good maintenance code. I was on council when it was initially adopted. It really clears things up for our zoning officer when he does need to cite somebody that's very specific about, grammar, that we can do that regarding grass, et cetera. And so, but I do want to say I appreciate your being
Okay, we voted now we need to take a look at, I think it's backwards me, but that's okay. Do we have a motion to suspend the rules so it does not have to be read on 3 different days and read the title of the bill 3 times by name only?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and meet by title only.
I will second.
We have a motion by Mr. Walters, we have a second by Ms. Bolton, and is there any further discussion? So I'm not sure exactly how you read this, I've never done this before, but
You do a roll call.
I'm sorry.
There's a motion on the floor, you do a roll call.
Okay, and then do we read it 3 times?
You just read the title once.
We're reading the title, and then one will read the
Okay. All right. So, okay. So let me get the actual thing this is. Okay, the first, I read it 3 times, is that what you're telling me now?
No, there's a motion on the floor to suspend the rules and read by title
Okay.
only. Ordinance number 3, 2024. An ordinance amending the ordinance number 18, 2010, International Property Maintenance Code 2009 edition by adopting the 2024 update to the International Property Maintenance Code. Now we have our roll call.
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Golden.
Yes.
Ms. Meister.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Ms. Jennings.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Now I'll make a motion to adopt. We introduced, we suspended the rules, now we're going to adopt.
I'll second that.
You're both talking about what you're saying.
There's no ordinance number on it, so I don't know what
It's
you.
ordinance 3.
Okay, I'll. Motion to adopt ordinance.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Mr. Walters. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Golden. Yes. Ms. Meister. Yes. Mr. Williams. Ms. Jennings.
Yes.
I must be jumping right here. Okay. Okay. I'd like to read a statement to the public and to the council here. The council actually has a copy of this. For those of you that don't know, Mr. Grayhall retired, and we did talk briefly about what to do. And so we came up with a temporary solution, and that's where Mr. Bushel has been operating the water department, because by law, the mayor cannot do that. So, my colleagues on the Cleves Village Council, I stand at a crucial juncture tonight. The decision to hire a village administrator, a role that has been pivotal since 2015, is before us. Prior to this, the village of Cleves functioned with an elected board of public works, an appointed street commissioner, a mayor, and a council. However, in 2015, the Cleves Village Council made the strategic move to hire a village administrator to oversee the day-to-day operations of the village. It is important to note that the Ohio Revised Code does not mandate a village to have an administrator, but it does provide that option. Given that the village has had its own public utility, the Cleves Water Works, which was supervised by Mr. Rahal as per Ohio law, it is crucial to understand the financial implications. 60% of his salary and benefits were paid for by the Cleves Water Works, and 40% was paid by Cleves taxpayers. I asked Ms. Ozer, our fiscal officer, to prepare a sort of financial cost statement that the council members have. I would like you to give an overview for the public, because they do not have a copy of that. So,
So in the past, and let me chime in too, you just want me to do the administrator. Past administrator was 60% out of the waterworks, 40% out of the village. The salary, you know, I spell that so wrong. 45,500 out of the village, 30,300, and then I went through, I broke it down to the PERS. And then insurance, the past administrator was employee spouse, so there's a little bit, it wasn't a family plan. So our past administrator for the water total was 62,000. And then 40% of the village cost was $41,453. The total for the administrator with benefits was $103,633.59. And the big thing is 60% came out of the water, 40% came out of the village. So, you know,
you have a projection for,
I would say if the village went with the administrator today, it's gonna be a lot more. We just went through with the township. I wouldn't say a lot more, but could be a family plan, which is gonna double your insurance cost. I would think total with benefits and insurance, my opinion, we could get someone in here and negotiate me less, but I'm thinking 120 to 130,000. And then water board, you told me that, am I 9,000 for the year?
it'd be 3,000 per person.
Right, and then I did the OPERS, which would be 10,500 total. If the village did a water board.
And you also looked at a part-time administrator?
Well, I'm thinking part-timer, 20, 30 hours a week, 40 to 60,000 with benefits.
Okay, so I just wanted to put that out there for you to think about. I know Mr. Bolton also has done some calculations too. I'm not sure how close that is. Linda, did you want to comment?
Pretty dead on. I just didn't have all the benefits. I didn't know what the percentage rate for OPERS was.
Right.
But yeah, it's pretty much exactly right.
Also in your packet, I think all of you have this too, although our council people also had information coming directly from our village attorney, describing the powers of a village administrator. And, you know, they're in your packet, I believe, along with the adopted job description for village administrator. And so the only person here for the public that is still on council, that was here when he was, or at least the position was created, is Ms. Meister. And then, of course, we have our fiscal officer who's now on council, Linda Bolton. I'd like, as I did last time, I'd like Ms. Meister to explain what the thought process was behind having a village administrator at that time.
Prior, at the time we were the village administrator, we had more village employees. We had our police department, at that time, which was a significant number of employees. But when looking at the village administrator position, what we were looking at was the village, it wasn't council's position as elected officials, not, most of us still work full-time jobs, are not in the village during the day. What we were looking at was, we need someone to be accountable, we need someone to be accountable with running the day-to-day things of the village, we need consistency. And that was the main reason that we looked at a village administrator. Right now, the way it stands, we have a mayor that is willing to put in, that's retired, that's willing to put in an excessive amount of time, he's dedicated. But in 3.5 years, he may not be reelected and we don't know what we'll have. Same with council members, every 2 to 4 years, we have a potential turnaround of council members. Same with the Board of Public Affairs. They were up for reelection every 2 to 4 years. So the main thing was to have some consistency and some accountability and someone to run the day-to-day procedures. At that time, as an elected official, we didn't feel that it was as an elected official, it's not our responsibility to run the day-to-day things. But somebody has to be there to oversee and run the day-to-day operations.
If I could say something on behalf of the council, just so it's on the record and everybody knows. These guys aren't getting rich by being on council. They make $250 a month. They serve on 2 committees in addition to the council meetings. And it takes a lot of time that they dedicate towards that job. And I've seen that very clearly just as short time as I've been there. They're working hard. And they all have jobs. And I know you do shift work. So I mean, it's sort of hard to do some of the things that the council is doing. At this time, though, I would like to have other members of council, you don't have to, but if you would like to sort of give your view of what you think should happen, and I'd like the audience to listen carefully, because they're going to be listening carefully when they finish to what your views are and what you think the village should do and how we should move forward. So at this point, I'll open it up for discussion to any one of our council members that wanted to address any aspect of what they feel about the position, not an individual, but a position of village administrator and whether or not it is required.
I'd like to make one more statement. When we make this decision, I don't think we should be making this decision based on cost savings, given the situation we're in right now. We need to look at what would be in the best interest of the village, years down where we move forward.
Thank you. Any other comments that anybody wants to make?
I have a couple comments. I think the village administrator that we previously had was given a wide berth that I don't think was that didn't have a lot of thought process put into it. I think there was a lot of decisions that were made by the former administrator that I think the council would, in my opinion, approve, or given him that latitude to enter into various contracts. I think if we have a job description that outlines what an administrator is expected to do, it would be so tailored, so specific, that I think we would kind of handcuff them, that I think we could be best served with an office manager that would help serve the mayor and council, or even a part-time position possibly. I know there's been discussion that if a part-time administrator work very closely with council and the mayor on various operations. I think it would be, again, a job description would be tailored specifically so that they operate with the purview of council's approval, as opposed to just allowing them to enter into certain things and then tell us after the fact.
I'd like to add to that, anything you're saying is not wrong. But when we have a village administrator, it is the mayor's responsibility to oversee the village administrator. In other words, the village administrator would be overseeing the day-to-day operations of the maintenance department and water works, but it is the mayor's responsibility. Previously, our village administrator did do a lot of things the council was not aware of, things that were not brought to council. That qualified on second.
Sure, absolutely. And also, what I picked up on when I found out that would be a contract administrator, I had to specifically deal with the administrator. I was told to contact the administrator, and I didn't have access to the council or the mayor. And I found myself never getting a call back from the administrator. So therein lies my angst for the administrator position, because again, they were so busy. The waterworks work was just banned. And while 60% of his salary was paid toward, the waterworks, I felt that there was a lot of time devoted toward that in Cleves. And I guess it's a matter of who do you serve. I guess you serve wherever your biggest slice of the pie comes from.
That was our first village administrator position. So that position itself, there is a lot of room for changes, adjustments. Maybe the percentage of what we thought it was going to be going in isn't what it ended up being, and those are things that we can adjust, change.
We got a lot of lessons learned.
Yes.
And I think that if you look back on those lessons learned, to my point, if you tailor a job description to that effect, you do have the ability then to kind of, I hate this word, but you micromanage them to some degree within that job description by giving them a limit on how much they can spend. Whereas before there was no limit. And then there was a lot of negotiations done. Correct. A lot of negotiations.
But there was no.
So there's no oversight. Absolutely. So to that point, like I said, there's lessons learned. And I think that the taste in my mouth, and I would say the village, you have to deal specifically if you have issues and nobody gets back to you. I think that puts the bitter taste in the mouth is why we need an administrator. If the village elects the mayor and council and expects the mayor and council to work for them, which is what we're supposed to do, why then do we need an administrator? When I think it would be a great benefit to be an office manager or thereabouts or something to that effect that would help all of us. I know Chuck, or the mayor, works night and day. 5 o'clock in the morning, I look at my emails and I got an email from him. 10 o'clock at night, I get an email from him, I get a phone call. I don't mind that, I'm retired too, but my point being is that I think the village elects us and hopes that we do the right thing. And that would be my only hope, is that, again, wanting your input as to what you think best serves you, whether it's the council and the mayor, or do you want one person who makes those various decisions with the council's purview over that? you know, again, when I came to this position, I said I'm willing to listen. I don't always have the right answers, but I just don't think that the village benefits from an administrator. I think it would be best served, and the community as a whole would be best served with somebody that would help us.
I like your idea.
And I would hear that, yeah.
Well, can all of council give their thoughts before we start?
I think we should hear from council first, and then.
I hear everything that you're saying, Terry, and I don't disagree. I think a village administrator being with the correct oversight would be beneficial to the village. I don't, as far as in the past, the feeling that residents got from the mayor, and I'm not gonna say all the council, because I don't think that I ever came across that way. As far as us not being approachable, or doing not being able to ask the village administrator, my email was on the village website. Very seldomly did anybody from, a resident from the village ever reach out to me, when we were going through the issue of just being in the police department, there were a few residents that reached out through my email, but I think the village administrator with the appropriate oversight would, in my opinion, would be beneficial. And when I'm talking about the day-to-day operations of the village, I'm talking about things like, overseeing the jobs that are being done. That person will be seeking out the grants for the different projects and, the maintenance department, instead of leaving what they're doing all the time up to just our head of the maintenance department, we have that village administrator that's making sure that they're staying on track, that they're accomplishing certain goals within certain time frames. I'm doing the same with the water works. I think a village administrator, in my opinion, would be better long-term than like a office manager, administrative assistant, whatever title we would choose. I think with a village administrator, we would be getting someone with a little bit more of an edge of background, appropriate to give us some of those things. And when it comes, something else that we have been lacking in this village is as far as accountability, things like I requested years ago that our village employee handbook be reviewed and updated. It is extremely outdated. But the day-to-day things that have not been getting accomplished, like evaluations, and, we recently did a across the board raise because our employees were, their pay levels were so low. That was because nothing had been done in so long. But when I give an employee a raise, I would like to see some type of an evaluation that just shows me that this is a person deserving of whatever we're going to get, not just because. But those are the kind of things, the day-to-day things that I think a village administrator, in my opinion, that a village administrator would serve us well.
If I look at, I appreciate the fact that you also said, I think if we look toward the industry, we're not based solely on cost. Given the numbers that we're looking at, well, I think the range of 120,000 to 130,000, I think, again, the village adopts, or not, I'm sorry, elects its officials, and you have one person who then runs that. I think there's so much responsibility that, again, you have the water works, and your devotion to them, and you have Cleves and our expectations of what we want to accomplish, and we're putting that all in one person. And the savings, I think, by having an individual water board to manage solely the water board, let them do their due diligence, and then part-time administrator or office manager or administrator, however we want to determine, would be a benefit to us all. And again, I agree with your costs. You shouldn't base it all on costs. I just think, again, you got to take that into some consideration.
If we went with a part-time administrator, we would not be able to do a part-time administrator and a water fund. Because for the ORC, the the administrator serves acts as water.
So you can't have a part-time.
We cannot, well, we could do a part-time administrator if we felt there was only enough work to justify a part-time position. But we couldn't do a part-time administrator along with the water.
So where the village is going now, do you believe to be part-time or full-time?
I believe it should be a full-time position.
There is a lot of direction on going.
You know, my concerns, and I don't want this, anyone, please don't take this the wrong way, I'm putting myself in this statement, but we talked about a water board, we talked about our council members, you have to be a resident of the village is small. There's not a lot of participation from the residents, but, you know, when you're talking about a water board that's running the waterworks, or the council member that's making the decisions for the village, we're just residents. We're not necessarily an expert on, you know, when I got on council, I didn't have any political background. I didn't get this management background as far as that aspect, but if we go with that route, that's what we're going to have, and it's going to change every 2 to 3 years. If we go with the village administrator, it's a professional, someone that's been educated and trained to do what we're asking them to do. And then hopefully we won't have frequent changeover in that position, so we can maintain some continuity with the administrator between changes in council.
Can I?
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, I've got something to say. 2 pages worth. I just think if we're gonna ask for resident input, I think it's important that the residents sort of understand. There are 19 villages in Hamilton County, populations ranging between 740 and 4,741. We are in the middle. Our population puts us in the middle of those 19 villages. We're about 9th largest. 11 of those are statutory, like we are. We follow Ohio State law, Title VII of the ORC. The other 8 are chartered. They've spent the money, they've put the time in. They want a strong mayor system versus the weak mayor system that statutory calls for. They've gone to all that work, they've developed charters, which gives them a lot more flexibility. So by population, we're the 9th largest. Only 4 waterworks other than us, 4 villages operate waterworks other than us. So we are a little unique in that way. As far as our tax millage goes though, our residents have denied us 3 times to pass the general operating levy. It's gone down 3 times. We do have 1 general operating levy for 3.90, which is outside millage that people vote on. We have a safety and a fire. So you're looking at the possibility as we go down the road and costs go up, that residents are going to be asked to put some more money out. Not right now, but in the future. When we talk about, I've heard things like we need someone here to oversee the operations of the village, the maintenance, the parks, the streets, watch what they're doing on day to day. Who's here to look out for what's in the best interest of the water users, the water customers, the waterworks? I think the waterworks paying 60% is unfair. There's no way that administrator puts in 24 hours a week to supervise a waterworks that it's already being run by a water superintendent versus 16 hours that the village is going to do. So I already think it's lopsided. My personal thoughts are 16 hours should go toward the waterworks and 24 to the village. If we're going to have a full-time village administrator. I am not necessarily in favor of that. I'm going to say though that my experience, there's 2 of us sitting here that have quite a few years experience with the mayor, the water board, and a council. You've got the couple that have only experience with the village administrator. You've got Jerry, who's had both, and you've got brand new Shayla here, who's getting adjusted to everything. Every mayor that I ever worked with, the 18 years I was here, had full-time jobs. They all worked full-time. But they had a reliable street maintenance person that ran the maintenance department. You had a waterworks superintendent that operated, or helped run the waterworks, and a board of 3 residents who oversaw that operation. If you've got the right people in place to run your departments, you don't really need another head honcho to look over and supervise them. You're hiring someone to supervise the supervisors. When you look at it, the waterworks is generally in a position to save more money by forming a board of public affairs than the village is. They've got more at stake here, but there's nobody here really looking at that picture for them. They could save almost $50,000 a year by going with a board of public affairs. 3 people within the village. They don't have to be water experts. They don't have to be, water treatment people. They just need to be looking at the operation. Are they doing their job? They approve the bills, they approve the capital projects, they look at the long term. And that's something then that these 6 people sit at this table don't have to worry about for the most part. I personally think without a police department, and let's face it, you had 3 full-time officers, a part-time police chief, and 8 or 9 part-time officers. We don't have that anymore. So you're no longer, and we lost our police department while we were under the control or management of a village administrator. Mainly because the budget was out of line, from what I understand, they couldn't get people hired, there were a lot of reasons. And I'm not criticizing that. I may have voted for it myself if I had had all of that. I just think without a full-time police department, we don't have a paid fire department, we're contracting both of those big services, that I think we can function very well with good functioning committees, a mayor, even if the next mayor is still working. Every mayor before him had full-time jobs. So this is not something, you're not reinventing the wheel here. If you put all the right supervisors in place, we have a good street maintenance supervisor, we have a superintendent of the waterworks, we might be hiring a new one soon if he fully retires. You put the right people in place, you do not need an adult to supervise things. I think Chuck's more than capable of doing that, and I think anybody that would come in behind him would also be more than capable to do that. Whether or not you get 3 people to volunteer for the water board, I don't know, can we find a good quality village administrator for what we can afford? And where are they gonna live? They're gonna live at Hyde Park, Oakley, and then come here to run our village for us? I don't think there's anybody more qualified to run our village than us.
Right.
And that's my thoughts, and I'll try to shut up. Not easy for me to do.
To that point, Linda, I think your last point was, where are we gonna find an administrator, Hyde Park, Oakley, Cincinnati? And if we do, they don't have, I believe, the best interest in Cleves unless you're a resident of Cleves.
Correct.
And based on that, again, I think what Jerry says also has a lot of weight in. The village has really been dynamic over the last years since you and I met and gone on almost 30-some odd years. A lot of change. There's merit there, but I still believe, and I think Linda touched upon it, because it was my last question, does the administrator have to be part of the Cleves? And while I believe if you find a good administrator, they have the best interest, I would hope, I just don't think it would be a priority. I think a lot of positions, just like Cincinnati, if you're going to be on council, you have to live in Cincinnati, if you're going to be part of it. And again, I don't want to berate any prior administrator that we had. I think he was overwhelmed. I think they did what they best thought, but I don't think, having a state, being a resident or a village, they made various decisions that really didn't benefit us. And that would be my worry. I think Todd brought it up a long time ago, where you're going to have to spend the money to get somebody good. But to Linda's point also, if you've got a good council and a good mayor, you do elect a water board from the village, you put the right people in place, I think you manage the village rather well. That's all I have.
Any other comments from council?
So I can keep it to a topic sentence that are much more aligned with Jerry than Linda and Gary. So consider this a seconding of those thoughts. I'll take on the last point since it was kind of novel. Without being rude, I think it's preposterous to argue that you have to be a member of Cleves to do a good job for Cleves. Like, you can take pride in your work, even if you don't believe in a specific organization, right? But there's no reason somebody wouldn't do a good job. They're trying to work for themselves as well, right? You don't want the reputation of having been a turd on the job. And let's face it.
Don't say it.
I was trying to
Don't say it.
I was trying to break it. I understand the pride of this community. I've seen it at work, so I understand why we're making that point, but it's not fair. I think again, I'm mostly going to second what Jerry said, but I'll take on a couple of different flavors. So I think we need someone filling the role of conducting certain activities. We need somebody writing our grants. We need a manager of the managers, because I don't expect any one specific department to have the great vision for the village held in memory to weigh the priorities and just do those kind of executive decisions, interactions, or negotiate between them. I think we need somebody to be thinking in long terms in terms of project planning. I think we need someone to be bringing expertise to this group of amateurs. So a point I'd like to highlight with specific words to it is that we need somebody who's going to sharpen our saw. We need someone networking with civic associations. We need someone networking with other administrators, reading the literature, looking up grants, looking up ways to improve things that none of us can devote to full time. On that point, we can't get an answer to this. We can't get an answer to this right now because the mayor's too busy. Let's see if I can tell the whole story. In a recent meeting, almost the last one, where I asked Chuck, as you're doing all this stuff, can you write down all the stuff we have to do each year so that we can have a tablet? And that kind of documentation always comes last, mind you. But, he's finding new things that we've been derelict in. But there's still a large roster of things that have to be done every year, filing with this agency or that agency, or oops, this law is expired, or it needs to be renewed every 5 years. So in addition to kind of the general accountability, there's a paying attention to bigger and more externally facing things, responsibility that the person in that role can fill. And so under sharpening the saw, I made a point of networking. I like Jerry's point on continuity. And I think that's all I can. Oh, sorry, one thing, just, we need the bandwidth. We need people to do more work. So I'll take the point that it could be somebody in a different role, but it's not inappropriate to make it this role.
Sheila, you got anything to add to this or not?
I feel very impartial at the moment, and I do think that is because I am fairly new. I don't know everything with the water board and the village administrator. But I will say, I do think I also align more with Jerry and Kevin. I like the idea of having the stability of one person, being able to go to that one person if you need help. And I'd also like to think, going off of Linda's point, of as long as we have quality people on the water board, we would put that same effort in getting a quality village administrator. So whether or not they live in Cleves, that's a whole different discussion. I do also agree with Kevin on that, where, I mean, I don't work my other job in Cleves, but I take so much pride in it. So there's no telling that somebody from Oakley or Norwood area would work here and that they would screw it up on purpose. You know, I'm sure they would take pride in it if they took the effort to apply for it.
I think it's time for us to listen to you guys.
I'm just sitting here taking everything in, I'll be short this week. I think, I agree with Jerry, Kevin, Joe. We can, with an administrator, we can customize what his or her job responsibilities are. We can change them over the period of time as they come. And as you were saying, Gary, we have lessons learned here. We learned a lot. We can change a lot. And we have to be flexible. And moving forward, I think having one person with a specific job title, listing of what they're supposed to do, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, and the narrator that looks at that and makes sure that it stays on top of it, and it's not a vicious sign.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
I listen along. Guys, it's time for us to listen. What do you
How long has it been since Cleves had an actual water board?
8.5 years.
15.
15 years?
Almost 9.
It's been 9 years.
Almost 9 years.
9?
8.5 years.
Did it run efficiently at that time?
Seemed to.
Didn't have a problem?
If they, not that I know of.
Not yet.
I mean, if they did, they often had to come to council to get big things approved. They didn't have the authority to approve all the big things. It seemed to run fine, I thought, but
Well, you got, if you have had a water board in the past, and it seemed to have run efficiently, and things got done or didn't get done, but was resolved, why would it be that we needed an administrator? Since we have, the past administrator has left such a bump in the road, which I have said many, many times, was a waste of money. We filled a position that it was unbelievable in my mind why it was never approached to either replacing or stick a fire under. But that, neither here nor there now, it's all ancient history. But if you do have an administrator, why does the administrator have to spend more time on the water instead of over the police?
and I would guess they never did. My guess is the waterworks had a larger burden of the cost than what they deserve to have.
Okay,
And my thing would be, it probably should be reversed. If it's important for us to have a village administrator, we should pay for what we're requiring of them. For the
Okay.
village part of things.
and the other thing is, didn't the administrator always have guidelines that he had to follow? He couldn't just write blank checks.
Not-
He did have a job description and there were guidelines.
Okay, and is it my understanding that Ray Hill didn't do that?
It was mayor's responsibility to oversee him. There's a lot of things that, since he has left, that I learned. A lot of
Okay.
things that weren't brought to council's attention.
All right, so part of that is resolved because we now have a
Good mayor.
a competent mayor,
Mayor and some new council members.
And we have-
administrators.
difference in membership here, so the guidelines, if you're gonna have an administrator and you feel that that's the better way to go, then the guidelines should be set up. They should have to follow the guidelines and know the guidelines. And there should be some thing written in that if they do not do the job, or if they're not competent to do the job, or they don't want to give up the time because they do live in Indian Hill or wherever the hell they live, then they can be replaced without being sued.
To Jerry's point, what was lacking in the past was the accountability factor. All right. And you have here a council and a mayor who demands accountability because we're accountable to you all. So if there is an administrator or thereabouts, it would be more accountability. And my point was as though that it's because we do have lessons learned, I hate to see a job description so handcuffed because we would micromanage it and, hold him to the T. He's got to be able to, he or she, I'm sorry, would have to be able to have some leeway to think outside the box, hopefully, and have the best interests of the village. But again, not to take away from your point, but to Jerry's point, you have a council and a mayor who demands accountability. Now, so
I think the council in the past, when there was an administrator in place, probably did everything that they could to supervise the supervisor. Okay, but at what point do we say, okay, village administrator, here's your job description, you need to do it? At what point do we stop micromanaging and supervising the supervisor, who's gonna supervise them, and where does this end? So, and then with Kevin's point about not necessarily having to live within the village, I agree with that, but if the decision is made to go with that administrator, I definitely think that they need to have had exhibited some time with a smaller population such as a village like ours. So we don't kind of like get back into the same situation we were with the past administrator. I think that there's a vast difference between administrating in a larger population, almost city-type atmosphere versus a small village that has its own issues, concerns that need to be attended to. So, the past administrator, there was also an issue early on. The probationary period was not utilized. And so I think that if the decision is again to go with an administrator, then there needs to be more attention early on to what his or her results are. And that's it.
again, we have a council and a mayor that is forward-looking, and we are well aware of the lessons learned.
Sure.
So, to that end, I would think that, again, we would be able to hold their feet to the fire to hopefully do and benefit Cleves.
Well, with respects to being forward-looking, you can always change your mind at a later date. Okay, so in 3.5 years, as the mayor possibly cycles out, other council members potentially cycle out, this subject can be revisited. So I just wanted to mention that just because you made a decision to go with or to not go with an administrator today, it doesn't mean that that can't be reviewed in the future.
Most of you, we're at that crossroad right now.
Right.
I would like to, I called the village of Elmwood Place, because I noticed that that was one of the few villages that had what they called an office manager. And I was just curious. They don't have a waterworks, so that Board of Public Affairs isn't an issue. But I spoke with a Sheila Dornbush. She's been the office manager at the Village of Elmwood for 20 years. Their population is less than ours, but she handles all the grant writing, the preparation of ordinances. They've got a village clerk, they got a clerk treasurer, actually. And I asked her, I said, why do you suppose that they didn't go with the village administrators? And she said, oh, the mayor at the time didn't want to give up their power and authority by doing a village administrator. So they kept all their power and authority given to them by the Ohio Revised Code, and they brought in someone to help handle the day-to-day operations, which was this woman who's been doing it for 20 years. She works 32 hours a week, she does get benefits. Now, having said that, a lot of the villages do have what they call village administrators. I don't know how many hours they work, I don't know what their pay is. She was one of the ones. They have one village has a service director. They probably have a whole board, police department and fire maybe, I'm even assuming. And then there was one other person considered a village manager, not office manager, but village manager. So it's not unheard of. You could put a water board in existence to oversee the operation of waterworks and hire someone to help manage the day-to-day operation of the village. Do the grant writing per se or whatever else you want them to do. Kevin mentioned that a lot of things about executive vision, project planning, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is village related, and it's waterworks related. Yet we're expecting them to absorb a big part of the cost. And in this case, we're gonna make a decision that could save them $50,000 or not. And there's nobody here really to speak on that. But I would say, I did do some groundwork on it, to check into it. I was here when I only worked with the village administrator for a couple months before I left. So most of my experience is with the Board of Public Affairs, and we've got a mayor. The mayor is considered the executive of the village, correct? What does the Ohio Revised Code refer to as the mayor? Chief operator, CEO. And a mayor can be a good project planner, they can be a good executive officer, they can be a good, because they live in the village and they got, I don't know of anybody that's had some of the foresight that Chuck has had, in terms of forward thinking about where they want the direction they want the village to go.
Can I speak? I don't think anybody up there is doing that job they're doing for the money. Do you all agree with that? And this, the village administrator, he done it, that was his job. Okay, but let's face it, this is a little bit of Mayberry. We were a close-knit community. We do it out of the love of, everybody's had their turn up there, or not everybody, but anybody that thought they could. And with the mayor we have now, and you and somebody here answered the question, we could go back to get rid of the hire village administrator if Chuck wasn't rehired. This is a golden opportunity for this village to save thousands of dollars on wasted money. Now, this village administrator might have done everything that the mayor told him to do, but the mayor didn't tell him to do anything. So what happened? The system broke down. Council didn't care as much. They were, it was just it was a domino effect. And I think we're on the other side of it. And I don't know that a village administrator would help us as much as hurt us. I mean, it's a gamble because he's in here, he wants it, he's doing it for a job. Chuck's not even doing this for a job. So I really feel that, my goodness, we're losing a golden opportunity to try this for 4 years.
Absolutely agree.
I have one very specific response to that, because when you first said it, I was very convinced, oh, that's interesting. Take the point that it's a bandwidth issue. Say that Chuck can't do it all. Give Chuck another employee who can execute with certain efficacy. Would not this be the perfect time to make use of the right employee?
Absolutely.
Couldn't you at that point hire a village administrator?
Why doesn't it be an administrator? Why can't it just be a
Why can't you hire somebody to help Chuck out?
cluster? Be in there.
Well, so if we isolate the point, it will be on, do you have an employee or not? So,
Right.
that's what the savings.
No matter what the title.
I've listened to all this, and I've actually lived here for 62 years, my whole life. I come from a background in nonprofit and philanthropy, and I think the first question to ask here is, what is the job description? What is actually the job description you want? I hear about 4 different things so when we talk about bandwidth, when we talk about capabilities, I don't really think there is a Superman that can fit all this. I really don't. I come from a leadership background in nonprofit work, grant writing, all of this. I 100% agree that to move Cleves forward, you have to have somebody that has a background in public administration. I'm not saying you have to pay $300,000 for them, because anybody that's worked nonprofit knows one thing: you ain't doing it for bucks. That isn't why you do anything. You do it for service, and you do it for helping do this, move people forward. I think that this village can really, really benefit from an individual who, yes, does exactly the administrative functions. Now, when I say administrative, I mean office administrative, grant writing, research. We have never had that. We might have had an administrator, but that person was not doing that work. And they did not work in conjunction with someone without a conflict of interest. There is a lot of conflict of interest when you start putting one person in an autocratic power position. There's no dissent, first of all. We have to have a right to dissent. That's a big deal. I think it's very laudable what everyone's trying to do, but I think we could benefit. I agree with you that the money appropriation sounds completely incorrect. If we want that from someone, right, we can't expect another entity to pay for something that they're actually not benefiting from. Now, how do we make that money up? Boy, okay, that's another big question, right? That's the secondary question. But the big thing is also this person is an employee. I can't believe we're sitting here having discussions about if they're an employee, they're at will in the state of Ohio. You can fire them anytime you choose, for any reason you choose in the state of Ohio. Opers or no opers. If they're not tenured professors somewhere, they're fireable. So when I look at this, the education isn't even appropriate. You just say they have to have a degree. What kind of degree? I think you should start here. What do you really want? What do you really want? And as far as finding the right person, I disagree, they are out there. I'm sitting in this chair. I know what I've done, and I know what I'm capable of doing. Do they have to be from Cleves? God, wouldn't that be a godsend? But I agree with Mr. Barnes and other people. I don't know necessarily that that's the truth. I think if you hire well, and then if they don't work out, you fire well, I think you get exactly what you pay for. But I think it has to be a decision on what is it that you want, what kind of investment are you going to make, and then the accountability factor does come into play. Who does the person answer to? Who? And who holds them accountable? That's the big thing. It's the accountability factor. And Jerry, I completely 110% agree. The employees of this village, they need to be evaluated. We have a responsibility. We're employing them. We're an employer. Those are rules and regulations by the Fed and also by the state of Ohio. If we're not doing those things, then we're missing the mark too. We're not holding up our end, then are we, right, as an employer? So I think when I sit here and listen to this, while yes, the water board has has its positives, but I think what I'm hearing is your expectations are you want something slightly different out of the person. We can look backwards and we can catcall and carry on and blame and bitch and all that kind of, that's not gonna solve anything moving forward. It's not gonna get us anywhere other than where we are. So, I mean, sitting here listening to this, like I said, serving the general public for 30 years, I don't know. I think there's massive possibilities here, massive possibilities. If it's just finalize, figure out what you want, write it up, put it past everybody, let everybody see what the job description looks like, but also just make sure it's written in a much better fashion where you get candidates of the right caliber that you would like to have, first of all. I mean, I just looked at Goshen's administrator role. It was amazing, you know, how it was written. And that sounds a little ridiculous, but that's the truth, right? That's where it starts. This all matters. So, I don't know. I think.
Goshen, the city.
Yeah. But I mean, just as far as the job description,
Right.
and how beautifully
Right.
well it was written, you pull any of them, they all look like that. So, anyway, in my mind, I think it boils down to first you gotta kind of figure out where you're throwing the dart before you can get a person to fit that profile.
Dale, you had your hand up, did you have anything?
Yeah, and you guys have already said some of the things that I was thinking. 9 years with an administrator, and it didn't work. We've gone backwards in a lot of respects. And that's not to say that there isn't someone out there who could do the job that we would need them to do. I don't know if we could afford that person or not. Or is it trial and error finding that person? And as she said, you could fire them if they're not doing the job. But I think right now, as someone else said earlier, we've got a good council, a mayor that's trying to repair things that have broken down. But the problem right now is that, the mayor isn't a full-time employee anywhere else, but this job is probably a whole lot more than full-time. I'm going to guess that he's spending a lot more than 40 hours a week for the village of Cleves.
Yes.
So, whatever you guys decide to do down the road, maybe in the interim, you give him a part-time helper, or as Linda said, and Elmwood was it? They had a office assistant maybe of some sort. But I gotta believe out there in Cleves, there are some retired people who may be just right at helping Cleves get grants and writing job descriptions. Some retired person is just looking for something to do. And that could give the mayor relief and but I just see the administrator as a little risky since we failed already with that pretty bad, and it went on for a long time. That's all.
Are we
One
prepared?
thing that's not been mentioned, in talking about if we didn't go to the village administrator, if we went back to the board of public affairs, and we hired someone such as an administrative assistant or whatever title we decided to give them, we would also have to go back to the street superintendent. That's not been mentioned tonight.
Yes,
So that is another position we would have to then fill, because the village administrator acted as the street supervisor or superintendent.
the street commissioner, and it was always an employee that was assigned as a street commissioner, and you just gave them additional pay. At times, it was our maintenance supervisor that was the street commissioner, other times it was the superintendent of the waterworks acted as the street commissioner for several years that I remember. You just added money to their salary, and they're down there during the day. They wanted somebody that was down there during the day. And if, I'm thinking it was somewhere around 5,000 a year, Jerry, do you remember?
I don't remember.
You're the only one who might have been here long enough to remember.
I do not remember any numbers.
It's about $5,000, and the street commissioner Harold Duncan became the street commissioner, and prior to Harold, it was, I'm sorry,
John Booth,
John Booth.
Yeah.
So it was.
and Eric Winusing was the street commissioner.
Right,
for a
but it
while.
was in the neighborhood that, and I'm here to tell you, I think they got a lot of work done too.
Yeah.
I want to say this, and then I'll acquiesce my time. We are at crossroads, no doubt, but I don't want to be in a position where we hire somebody, they don't work out, and we fire them. I'd like to have a trial period, again, where we take this time that we've got right now and look to get some help that we're looking for, that we can afford. And like I said earlier, is have our village have confidence and faith in us to do the right thing, getting the help that we need to help this go forward. I like Todd's comment of grant writing and helping us move forward, again, not looking back. But I don't want to be in a position where we hire an administrator at a salary that is, I think would be a good salary for an administrator. You applied for the position, you sounded like.
I just retired, so it sounds good. And that wasn't a vote of confidence for me, it's just saying that, you know, having seen this before. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I don't want to be in a position to where this doesn't work out. I would hope that if we do, it would work out. I think it would benefit us if it does, if we go in the right direction.
Yes.
Again, we a forward-looking council. We've got a young council.
What?
Brought down the age. Every job like that has a probation.
But you know, this first, you can even do that. You can even do that, sir. You can set it up as a contract employee for a year and see how it works and then hire the person on full time. Yeah, there are ways around that.
You can always have a probationary period for any employee as well.
Right.
That they're evaluated after 90 days, 6 months. I work at Children's in the fundraising
Good for you,
department,
girl.
in the development department, and I had a 6-month probationary period.
Yeah.
And I sweated that out, 180 days, and I said, oh, they missed their chance, I'm still here. So you can definitely put guidelines, but then, and the point was made earlier too. By law, a village administrator is given certain authority that we can't automatically take away just because we don't want them to have it. So they will have some authority. And in the past, whenever it was, and trust me, it was brought up long before they ever brought one in. It was discussed several different times.
Sure.
And nobody was ever willing at that time to pull the plug because of the power and authority that the mayor would lose. If I remember correct, the mayor loses more power and authority than the council does. And so there are some things by law that you can't control. So we would be able to control some things, no doubt, and oversight, be able to kind of oversee what they're doing. But I would say I would insist probably on a probationary period of some kind, on any kind of a contract or lease, if we continue down the village administrator path.
Can we afford it?
That's a very good question.
Can we afford it?
Yeah.
I mean, now, can we afford it?
We can
Not the
afford it
levy, not
if
the-
we put it on the backs of the waterworks and the water users and make them pay 60% of it, yeah, we can afford it. I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Could you benefit from somebody being an office manager to the mayor's office?
No question, I think you could.
No, I would answer you this way, okay? Whatever you're dealing with, I'm a former economics teacher too. We talk about the production possibility, but you're going to have so many hours in a day. If you try to do too much within that 24 hours, things start falling through the cracks and mistakes are made. I made some already this year. So I think I had a conversation with pretty much every one of our council members now. So, yeah, I probably would be able to benefit.
But with the village,
Well, I think there's the key. It all depends. And yeah, I listened very carefully tonight. there's nothing I heard here I disagree with. Anyone said here.
Your water bill wouldn't go up and maybe the next tax bond issue would be passed for the village.
What,
Think of it that way.
what I would tell you is that when you are looking at an administrator accountability, and I'm not trying to point any fingers at them, because these are part-time positions. And none of us are here are professionals, as far as I'm coming with, being politicians or the village council members. We're learning. Okay, so in my mind, if you have unity on your council and the mayor is held accountable too, it's not just the village administrator. Council has responsibility to hold the mayor accountable. And I think if you go with that mindset, okay, you can do an administrator and make sure things don't fall through the cracks. I'm not pro or against. I think you asked whether we can afford it. I hate to put this out there, but I think you better be thinking about the big picture that's coming ahead. And I hate to put the pressure on Cindy, who's sitting over to my right, but I do believe we're going to be looking at a rather large increase in the cost of fire protection in this village. And when you take a look at our budget, I'm not sure if one of us up here, or maybe Linda and you have a good idea where it is right now. I know Kevin probably has a good idea also. But you can't predict the future. You just can't do it. And we don't know. I mean, I had a call just today about when are we going to repair Wamsley. I've spoken about Wamsley before, but this came from a resident. And I said, I'd love to give you a great answer on that. But the cost projected for Wamsley Avenue is $1 million. This village doesn't have $1 million. And Linda brought up the fact that we have failed, was it, did you say 3 straight?
General fund ones.
So
The first one barely failed, and then the next one failed.
It's a shame that we had one levy go down by 4 votes. Because I took out $320,000 off their budget. We never regained that. So, yes, we don't have the police force, but we still are going to have rising costs. We all know the assumptions going on. I would tell you, I don't like, and I agree with people, especially when Jerry's talking about consistency. You don't want to be to the water board for 3 years, then go back to the administrator, then decide that it didn't work, go back to a water board. So there's so many different factors that you have to consider. I wish I had an answer. Yes, it would help. Is it impossible for me to do some things that need to be done? Probably not. I can tell you a grant writer would be of great assistance to this village. Because they're trained to do that stuff, number one. And there is money out there. But having the time and the expertise to do it, which I do not have. Okay, I'm trying to learn Google Drive, and I'm failing miserably at it. You know? So when I think about it, I mean failing miserably.
We didn't have that. In the past, short past, somebody that could do that.
Yeah, that would be very helpful, not just to me. I could take a worry off me, maybe from the standpoint because I know it needs to be done. But I can guarantee you none of us up here have the expertise. Well, I can't say that. Kevin pulled off a grant in 2 days. So, but it takes time, and you got to have experience in doing it. I don't have.
Mayor, I have a quick question. We were supposed to make a decision on what date
Well, it was May, and I don't remember exactly what the date was, but it was probably somewhere around May 12th or something in that range, just coming out.
So we're coming up with a date that we need to decide, sooner or later extend it. And I think the sooner we make a decision or decide to extend it, it's pivotal.
You do, okay, but I'm gonna share with you my perspective. I think one of the questions you asked today was whether or not I knew how many hours, I know he's putting hours, okay, but how many hours? I know he's not spending a lot of time as far as daily operations of the village, and I want it to be that way. But I also don't know how many hours he spent with the waterworks. I listened to Linda talking about the fact that we have a superintendent over there, and he's experienced. How much supervision does he really need? I don't know the answer to that. So I'm not sure I'm willing to go at the salary we're paying at $4,200. I'm not sure I'm willing to go that route. You may want to extend it, but I would be renegotiating that now.
But I think when we last spoke at the council, we put a term or a limit,
You did.
and I just want to make sure that
I'd have to go back and look at the.
I think it was 3 months or something.
I think it was May, it was in May. I just don't know the finalized date. So, but we can find that out. I mean, actually, probably, Penny, you could probably run get that. You have it too.
my point being is that, are we making a decision today, but for right now, where do we go forward?
Well, I don't know where the rest of the council is. I mean, we've heard from the residents. I think that's got to be decision council rights, whether you want to extend that, equal time. I don't think you can go on indefinitely. Not to extend it.
Not to extend.
So I think what you're gonna have to do, and that brings me to this last point. I talked to Rob about this, because whatever we do tonight, and I talked to Kenny about it, if we decide to do something, whatever that is, we've gotta have everything, we gotta almost construct a resolution of what we want very clearly, so he can actually write an ordinance that's, or resolution that's targeted what we said we want. And he said he could write that resolution or ordinance, however you want to do it. If you stay with the village administrator, you don't have any ordinance you have, if it's already on the books. Okay? So you could stay with the village administrator and go out for a job search. We do what Perry was saying, make sure you know what it is you want in that person and write the job description.
That brings up one thing about
Can't do the search to do that.
as far as council, we do have a position description for the administrator. But is this something that council wants to review together and make any changes or amendments to it? And then also, if we decide to go with the village administrator, do we want to make changes to the pay as far as, the percentage what comes from the water? We need to decide those things before we put it out.
I would agree with that. And I toss one other thing in there. If you really want to make it accountable, if you really want a person to be a grant writer, collect a dollar figure they gotta bring in each year, and I'm not talking about the ones you just get. There are competitive grants, and you make it competitive grants.
You might want to go with number of grants instead of dollar amounts.
Could be.
You're not guaranteed the money to bring.
That's correct. And sometimes, let's say if the grant's, $100,000, there may be 5 awardees and you may get 20% of that dollar amount and not the entire thing.
Correct.
That's just coming from past experience. But we were just kind of talking about that. Yeah, you could definitely say the expectation is you're gonna, I don't want to say score, but you can score this many grants in this time period.
I
And then
think
that's
that
when
we
they
gotta put some
pay.
target out there that they gotta hit.
Just, yes.
Well, do we take a vote then, right here now, council, as their opinion? Where we might stand and where we might go so that we can decide this? I think Jerry makes a very valid point. I don't know how we proceed once we don't agree on money, we don't agree on title, and we have a job description that's so ridiculous, whether we want it for an office manager or we want it for an administrator. So I think we're kind of impasse.
Most of us were here when this decision was made. I want to see a full job description. I want to be able to give input. I also want to look at the salary. Our past village administrator didn't start out at the salary he finished at. I think we'll definitely get a better qualified person if we keep the salary higher. But then the other question is, do we bring someone in 40 hours a week, or do we bring somebody in for less hours a week? And those decisions we gotta make, but the first decision I would think would be, who wants to keep a village administrator? And if that goes down, then you've got to go the other path. But we should at least come to that line, because we have to refine a job description, pay range, and then we have to advertise it and try to get people to apply for it. So we've still got work to do.
Go ahead.
May 12th was 4 days away.
Listening to council here.
As a consolation, the minutes are recorded as April 12th, so we're already,
I was just looking at the minutes too.
so
I was just reading them.
that definitely doesn't match anybody's memory up here. So we probably voted yes on that minutes, we should.
So just in generality, I get a feel that there's 4 council members that probably want to go the same route, and apparently there's 2 that probably oppose that.
Now, I think a motion needs to be made by somebody who wants to make the motion, and then see how people vote.
I don't know we can. And I'm telling you why.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we remain with a village administrator, which I'm gonna vote no on, by the way, but I'll make the motion to show you that you can do it. I'll make a motion that we maintain the village administrator position, and look at the job description and the pay, and maintain the status quo, look at the hours, but maintain a village administrator position.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion to maintain, and we have a second. Are there any further discussion?
Yeah, I wanna make sure that we look at the job description and the pay, and the number of hours.
Well, let's,
The percentage, yeah, how it's broken down.
Well, no, what is this person, 40-hour worker, or they have 28, 32 hours? And then how is it divided?
So-
Probation period.
I don't envy any of the task of recording what's a motion. So let's let our discussion be what is the motion? With this one, motion to remain in the village administrator format with the provision that there will be discussion on
I
how
will
we can
withdraw my
improve.
motion and allow Kevin to make the motion.
Well, I'm not trying to be difficult.
No, not at all. I was not wanting to make the motion because I'm not going to support it. But I just want to get it on the record that you could make the motion.
By the way, we were expecting her to verbatim, which is ridiculous, and she's got cramps in her hand. Okay, so this is being videotaped. I would not want 12 pages or 25 or 50 pages for next council to go through that just regurgitates this council meeting. It is not right. So, pardon? Let's move on.
Are we gonna let Kevin make it a
Yes.
motion?
So here, maybe we can have 2 motions. Well, see, much like nominating person that might not be clear with it. So if there's a motion to remain, there can be a second motion to say, all right, now that we're remaining, we have a motion to not post anything until further discussion on the job description and
That should be part of your motion, Kevin. There was a motion to continue with the position of the village administrator, but before the position is posted, council will review the job description, the hours, how it will be split between the waterworks and the village,
And a
pay range, benefits.
She just made the motion.
I agree.
Let's go.
the four things for Penny's sake were the pay, the budget, the job description, and the hours.
Hours, and how the hours are defined. Right.
Is there something that goes to a president of the public, or that we have someone who does that?
Is that an official motion, Kevin?
I believe I'm seconding it, yeah. I make the motion that we remain with the village administrator format with the provision that council will discuss the salary, the hours, the budget, meaning the allocation of hours between waterworks and the general use, and I forgot the four things I couldn't hear. And the editing the job description.
She's got it.
I'll
Pay,
second that.
hours, budget, description.
So, motion's made by Mr. Byrd, seconded by Ms. Meister. Any further discussion? You have a comment, Lisa?
Yeah. I got two comments. First comment is, okay, you've already stated, we're not professionals in this. Can you hire a consultant for, reason, I don't know what the amount would be, to look over everything and propose what would be beneficial to the village for now and for the next, 5 years or whatever? And if we go with what you're wanting, why would we have somebody in charge of just the waterworks and have somebody looking over them? Why don't we just have two part-time people? One for the village and one for the
Because the way it's written in the ORC, you have a village administrator that oversees the waterworks in the village, or you have the Board of Public Affairs and the mayor administrates the village.
So that's how it has to go.
It's because it is written.
That's the
in
law.
ORC, right now.
Okay, all right. So can we look at other communities that have the same issues like Linda did?
There's a motion on the floor.
Oh, okay.
They need to go ahead and decide if they have any more conversation. Is there any more discussion on council? Penny, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters. Ms. Bolton,
No.
Ms. Meister,
Yes,
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Jennings.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2. So, if I may answer this a little bit, just so you know, prior to me being elected, actually before I decided to run, I had a discussion with Mr. Woody Hall about job descriptions, about evaluations, and other village administrators. And I was told there were absolutely none of them that were evaluated. I have an email, none of them were evaluated. That's just the way things are done. I went out and got 4 different job descriptions, 4 different evaluations from 4 different villages. There's plenty of things that we can look at and model. Some of them are very progressive and very successful villages. So there are things that we can look at and compare what we have and make it better. And I don't know that you necessarily need a consultant to do that. Miami Township, I know, uses consultants and had very mixed results. So I think you have good people up here. And I mean that, all of them are good people. And we're gonna do our due diligence to make sure that the right things are in place and that's the decision the council goes, I don't think you're gonna see the same problem that we had in the past. So I'm confident in that. Good. Any other, business from the council here tonight?
I think we, given the motion that we just made, I think the council needs to set a meeting to go over the job description, the ORC, job description for a village administrator, and all the other questions that were brought up.
You want to do a
But
special?
I think that should be done, especially just for that purpose, not, as part of our regular next month.
Do we want to set that meeting tonight?
If anybody's willing to say yes.
Is everybody in agreement to do a special council meeting just for that purpose?
Sure, but when?
That's going to be the question. I think that's probably the most complex schedule, so.
I am in surgery on May 24th, so I'll be out in mission for this year, like a week after
That office position would be right there.
It pays well.
In other words.
Not me.
Apparently you've got it.
Jim would be a good man.
And I wanted to stay that way. I think Rocky's. Hi, Mary. You just volunteered and you don't know it.
Yeah.
They're not covered. I looked up.
Yeah.
See, they don't have a waterworks, Rocky.
Yeah, I guess, I don't understand.
Yeah, sure, yeah, please.
Waterworks, man.
Waterworks.
I'm sure we do, but I don't understand profit. Honestly, they don't make profit.
We're trying to get a date for a special meeting and we can't hear each other.
Yeah, this was special.
Can you hear me down there now?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Mr. Williams is going to be out of town until after the 26th. I'm sorry. I'm going to be watching his house. I live down the street from my mom. There are a few days after the 24th. What is everybody's availability for May 29th or 30th?
29th, I have a conflict. 30th, I would be okay. 29th is got a conflict. 30th is okay.
I'm okay on the 30th.
Thursday, May the 30th, 7 p.m. Special meeting of council to discuss the village administrator position.
Yes. All right, so that will be the next meeting, which will be the 30th of May at 7 p.m. And it'll be a special meeting, which means it has basically, the only topic we're going to deal with is the pay, the benefits, the hours, job description, probably the evaluation system, all that stuff's going to be discussed at that meeting. There'll be no other topic. Any other new business or any other comments from council? Would you like, yes, Ed?
I'll have two things. First, I'll make a motion that we appoint Rob Merkel, the interim water supervisor, through the end of July 31st, because our records say his term has already expired.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion to make Robert our acting administrator from July 30, up to July 31st, 2024. Are we keeping the same salary? Are we keeping what we did with it?
Yes.
And what about the percentage breakdown? You want to keep it 90-10, since he's doing primarily just the waterworks, he's not doing much stuff in the village itself?
I'm not familiar with us configuring
You
this.
want to give him 90% of the
No, well, that's what we did
administrator's
last
salary?
time. No,
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 no.
no. Duties.
90%
Of what?
The 42.
of the 4,200 was paid out. We did that last meeting. It was a 90-10 split.
But what's the 4,200? Where does that?
That's what we decided on at last meeting.
So here I would like to be able to.
I don't remember deciding on that.
It should be.
Is that in addition to the solicitor?
It is.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons I said, I thought that needed to be cut back.
Did we make a motion? I don't remember voting on that. I don't think I would have supported it.
I believe that was part of that.
We did. But I would like to preference this, we're going to extend him through July, and we have a tabulation of what hours is done.
It was less than what Mr. Rayall was making. I just know that. It wasn't much less. And you want to make a stipulation, what,
I'd like to have a list of hours that they.
hours in the village? Hours in the village.
Devoted to water board, or I'm sorry, devoted to the water boards that he's overseeing.
Okay.
What, for his bill, that he provide
Breakdown.
a breakdown. I think we go into the fact that we're gonna look at that cost.
It should be automatic.
You see,
Yeah. So for council's minutes, looking at the minutes from April, they are contradictory, okay? So the initial motion says there will be a term from March 11th through April 12th, 2024. Then it says there was extending the term to 3 months. And then that was adopted. So I think if we give ourselves a reasonable interpretation of our record, that means that the current arrangement is through
June.
the June meeting, right? So it would have been June, my memory is meeting in that building meeting, the regularly scheduled council meeting for June, so.
That does ring a bell.
Is there anything in there that's voted on $4,200 a month?
Not under the search term salary or 4,200.
I'll look at it tonight too, because I don't remember that at all.
So I mean, not invoking any lawyerese here, we might be okay till the next meeting. I think we can.
Just wait till the meeting.
How about this, a motion to affirm that his current appointment, under whatever configuration we have, extends, in fact, explicitly through the June meeting where we can review it. Is that, just to cover our bases on what we actually said before, since we seem to have made it clear already.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I don't understand what I'll be voting on.
You're voting on, basically what Kevin's trying to do is create a solid date because of whatever confusion, I do remember this discussion. We had a shorter date and we decided to extend it. And that June 12th meeting does ring a bell. I think he's just trying to solidify that that's the end date. Am I correct on that, Kevin?
Yes, and
Oh, okay,
So
I believe that.
we got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Penny, call the roll.
Mr. Burns.
yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Bolton.
Yes.
Ms. Meister. Yes. Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Ms. Jennings.
Yes.
Are there any other items that you wish to discuss this evening?
I would like to raise a very trivial one, but I think something that requires consent. if we're going to make any plans. So from our Parks and Rec meeting, which was very hurried, which didn't allow for a lot of deliberation or voting out of committee, so none of this has been approved. I argued for taking action, especially in light of having new staff, to create a wiffle ball league, which would be extremely small in scale from the commitments of the village, basically setting up a schedule or soliciting participation, sending out the schedule, not staffing umpires, nothing of the sort, making minor investments in materials, which can, depending on how you do it, range from, say, $500 to, say, $1,500. So it will take planning to do that, checking on the insurance, publicity, getting the materials, which might run out of stock, and so forth. So if we're to take any action on that, say if I were to privately work with Daniel on the actual configurations of this, go through the normal channels of administration. The question is, does council have a problem with this and would like to forbid it, or would they assent to proceed? It's not quite the same caliber of issue, however.
You're just asking, if I understand correctly, whether or not you can spend $1,500, is that what you're asking for?
Well, and license the authority of the village, like checking on our, putting an event under our insurance. There's preparations we have to make to do this properly.
So it would be a village sanctioned fee.
That's what I'd like to explore. That's not to say that we would execute on anything before we have a chance to even vote again. It's just to make preparations. And let's say that the main issue is, can I spend $500 on this if everything else works out?
I think liability might be our biggest problem, not money. If it's a village sanctioned, we may get liability issues. I don't know. We need to talk about on that.
Agreed.
So waiver.
That's a good idea. Oh.
So the work would, that's part of the legwork, right? Finding out and
That's.
issuing the waiver. All right, we'll do legwork, but I guess we'll hold off on too many purchases until we hear more.
I don't know what else. I have one. Can you, go ahead and have Mr. Murphy draft the motion for the posting of the village administrator, so that will be ready, we've already prepared, we can let our meeting on May the 30th. So that I can.
I'll email them today.
And we'll discuss where we're gonna post. Whether you go on Indeed or where we're gonna post to get the best candidate.
Any other items tonight?
Sorry, one more. So that I can bring it back to committee. So one piece of information, Christmas Walk started its adventure. It's very easy for that to consume the whole Parks and Rec, so we're getting it off the docket. That means it now has its own meetings, starting with one on May 15th at 5:30 in council chambers. That will be organizational, trying to find committee members to take on different roles, spec out what those will be, and start doing certain tasks, because despite it being mid-May, we probably have to book tents and Elvis acts or whatever. And, how do we find a carriage? So,
Is that 7 p.m. you said?
5:30.
5:30?
Well, that eliminates.
So that's the announcements, but I want to take one thing back to them. Question for our fiscal officer. Can we, is it appropriate, are there considerations, put a line in the budget specifically for that event and activity for, say, fundraisers to flow in, or expenses, which.
Going back
This
to
now
your
done?
football, you're going back to,
No.
wait,
Christmas
Christmas,
walk.
oh, Christmas walk, yeah.
So, money will flow into the village at some point, from that grant. They say very surely, but not 100% surely.
Be a separate, in the general fund, a separate line item, and then come back out, yeah.
And that's the way to do it. Okay. So,
So they're not gonna go through their own, don't they have a nonprofit, the Christmas walk?
if I can get a hold of it, that would be
That's,
lovely.
What do you think, Linda?
No, they used to, but
Yeah.
that committee disbanded. So,
that's a discussion.
Not, that's, I just, no,
We,
we can make that work easily, yeah.
That nonprofit needs
Yeah.
to be out there though.
Yeah.
That nonprofit needs to be out there.
well, nobody's alive.
that's, yeah. I mean, the grant will come into Cleves, irrespective.
Yes, and sometimes a provision in a grant tells you it has to be a special fund.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes you might be able to put it in park fund as a separate line item on the revenue side and the expenditure side. But the grant will tell you whether it has to be a separate fund.
Okay, so we'll be in touch, basically.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to put that on the radar because it seems like.
Okay, I'm like,
I hate to even ask, are there any other? Oh, we have a motion on the floor to adjourn by Mr. Williams, a second by Ms. Feister. Is there any further discussion? Let's, can we call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Bolter.
Yes.
Ms. Meister. Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much for sitting all this.
I do turn it in.